Dreadford's public library, Julio was in deep meditation, his face contorted in a frown as the eldritch symbols and formulas of the Ars Sanguinis flew through his mind. Candice, his teacher, wanted him to expand his control to a second element, as was the norm between students of the art. He had an easy time mastering fire, but air, his chosen second element, has been a much slower process. The mage tried an incantation and tapped into the power of his blood, but the air inside the room refused to follow his will. Julio could not fully concentrate on his studies. He was worried about his wife, Christina. She had been traumatized since her kidnapping, and worse, she could not receive a full explanation from everything that happened because of the laws of the Nosferatu. Unless she was under sanguine fealty, she could not leave the library, as she already knew too much about Nosferatu affairs. Recently, she had started refusing her treatment, and soon after, her cancer returned. Time was running out and Van Arden was working diligently to get authorization to bring her into the blood, but the council was denying it. The justification was that House Ashkari had recently brought Julio into the blood, and there are other houses more in need of expanding their numbers. A small fire spontaneously started on a table nearby. Julio stopped his meditation and with a simple gesture put out the flames. Such was the risk of trying to work Ars Sanguinis without a clear mind. Julio was worried about Daniel too. His friend had almost lost his eternity thanks to an attack. Daniel had also been working overtime to distract himself from the world around him. Maybe it was time to pay him a visit at the cabin in the woods and help with Vittorio's case. Julio closed the door to his practice room when he heard a voice behind him.
Julio, do you have a minute?
It was Agnes, the second eldest of the 4 remaining children of Van Arden. She was a young woman with light brown hair and wearing huge glasses. There was something frail and aloof about her appearance, but she usually was friendly and kind to him. She was carrying a heavy book in her arms.
Of course, Agnes. What is it?
My crew, the Ebony Dagger, wishes to invite you and your crew for a parley.
The Ebony Dagger, Agnes? Are you kidding? Our last encounter was not very friendly, to be very honest with you. Coaches shot an arrow at my colleague and would have me shot had I not defended myself.
Cochise can be too blunt. I apologize. We have discussed it and we all agreed to. Yelena wants to clear the air between our crews.
I don't know where such a meeting could take place safely. If the wrong people got wind of this, it could be trouble for both our crews.
There is a place we can agree is safe for this meeting, here in the library. Van Arden is grateful to Daniel for his help in bringing you back, and he is the only member of the council that the Ebony Dagger has no quarrel with.
Are you sure? No tricks or arrows, huh?
You have my word.
Julio relayed the invitation to his companions the same night. To his surprise, Daniel, who was the one he expected the most resistance from, easily agreed to the meeting. Eloise had nice words to say about Cochise and agreed. Tom had no beef with the Ebony Dagger, but was cautious about the whole idea. The one who most opposed it was Oliver. He kept saying Yelena was trouble and that they should not push their luck. In the end, it was up to Julio to break the tie, and after careful consideration, he voted for the meeting. The Midnight Fiends were in need of allies, as Nayati had counseled, and he trusted Agnes. The next night, at the agreed time, the Midnight Fiends arrived at the library, ironically at midnight. Someone at the Ebony Dagger had a sense of humor. Before they went in, Tom Bridges took Oliver to the side.
I want to apologize for the other day. I was feeling guilty and I ended up taking it out on you.
Nah, there is nothing to apologize for. Your words had truth in them, and I still want to make things right. No hurt feelings?
None on my side.
Both of them smiled, shook hands and caught up to the rest of the group in front of the library. The building was dimly lit and silent. The air had a faint reflex of the arcane. Agnes was right inside, waiting for them.
Guys, this is Agnes. She's an older sister to my sire Hendrik. She's also the librarian here, knows a lot about more subjects than I can even fathom.
Julio exaggerates. I think I already know a little about each one of you from his stories. In the name of the Ebony Dagger, I thank you all for being here.
After a quick greeting, the librarian took them to a huge room that had been prepared for the meeting. The room was full of bookshelves and had a large table in the middle. There, sitting at the table, were the Nosferatu of the Ebony Dagger. The 5 vampires stood up to greet them.
This is Cochise from House Volkos.
I misjudged you, Daniel Reed. For that, I apologize.
Too soon to say that.
A masked woman, She seemed to resent the reunion and scanned each of the midnight fiends thoroughly. They could see cold eyes staring at them through the slits of the mask.
This is Virginia from House Orlock.
Just remember, this meeting was not my idea. It was Yelena's, and I was vocal against it.
I am happy to see you are well, Eloise. I wish all your companions the same.
Cochise interrupted, annoyed at his crewmate's behavior, and shook hands with Daniel and Eloise.
Water under the bridge, Cochise.
You gave us quite a scare.
After Cochise, Agnes pointed to the next one among the Ebony Dagger.
This is Obadiah from House Leviathan.
You were the customers from the other day, I remember you.
He shook hands with Tom, Oliver, and Daniel.
I know some of you are still new to the blood. Nosferatu are not very welcoming, and the Human Resources Department sucks. If you want to catch up, I know a very good bar near the occult shop called The Coffin. We can see people having fun and sit down to have a relaxed talk. I would love to. It just needs to be discreet. Of course.
Obadiah greeted Julio and Eloise and returned to his place.
Well, this is Amanda Noir from House Morrigan. I heard some of you have met her before.
Amanda timidly greeted them.
Ms. Noir, a pleasure seeing you again.
Thank you once again for your help.
Have you achieved what you searched for, Mr. Oliver?
We got the documents we needed, but someone has blown them up along with Daniel. He barely survived. After that, all related documents mysteriously vanished from the city halls.
Oh, I'm so sorry to have put you at risk.
No need to feel guilty about that. I knew what I was getting into when I accepted the case. As I said before, I don't like leaving a case unsolved.
Thank you, Daniel. But as we agreed, there are more important things for us to worry about right now.
Don't tell anyone I said it. But soon in your future, someone or something is going to open another door for you to reach the answer you seek.
Amanda winked at him and proceeded to greet the remaining midnight fiends, leaving Oliver mystified.
Lastly, this is Lady Yelena, Marquise of the East Side, from House Strix, our leader.
Agnes pointed to a blonde woman wearing a slinky red dress. There was a visible intensity about her, piercing blue eyes displaying courage and beauty, only surpassed by the mysterious aura she exuded. She walked like a model, but stood tall like a proud warrior. Her charisma was inebriating and contagious.
Well, if it isn't Daniel Reed, the city's most elusive detective, I thank you all for accepting our invitation. Come, let us sit and discuss what brought us here.
What do you want with us? I'm not in the mood for games.
Take a seat. The Ebony Dagger does not play games. There is too much at stake.
Daniel Reed took his place, and so did the other midnight fiends. Yelena slid into the seat opposite to him with feline grace, her smile as sharp as a blade, her beauty sparkling like diamonds.
Daniel, calm down. You agreed to it.
What is it then?
I have made it my business to know each of you. The renown of the Midnight Fiends has spread like wildfire in Nosferatu circles, and I have ears in all of them. After saving Spectre's right hand, he tried to destroy you, Tom. Julio lost his sire to the tower, and the council has yet to answer it. Eloise, you were accused of murder by your own house. And Oliver, you tried to solve a mystery of your bloodline only to become a target of hidden agendas. Do you see what I see?
They stayed silent. A feeling of impending doom started to grow inside the midnight fiends. They started to realize exactly what was happening here.
We see, Lady Yelena. Do you suggest we should do something about it?
How, Oliver? I heard amazing things about you. Smart, industrious, successful, so much like your own sire. Don't tell me you inherited his cowardice as well.
You know Nicholas?
Of course we know each other.
Her eyes sparkled.
You don't know? He is keeping you in the dark to protect you.
Oliver shifted uncomfortably in his seat.
What do you mean?
It is not my place to tell. Do you see now, Daniel? This is a proposition. A chance for us to finally break free from the King's Council.
Daniel could not help but raise an eyebrow. Eloise and Oliver, as the oldest among the fiends, understood perfectly. There have been rumors in the city that some vampires were dissatisfied with the king and his council. Some believe that it is time for someone new to bear the weight of the crown. and Yelena was known to be one of them.
You want us to rebel against the council? That's suicide. They'll hunt us down like dogs.
Not if enough Nosferatu do it together. You know as well as I do that the council's grip of the city is tightening with each passing night. They control everything, every deal, every decision. It's time someone stood up to them. For the first time in decades, they have been dealt a blow with the recent attacks by the tower.
And what makes you think we are up for the job?
You have been working for the members of the council and have acquired quite the reputation. You clearly have all it takes to make the difference. You just have to find within yourself the desire to do so.
This is absurd. Even if we were to agree, and I'm not saying we are, why exactly should you wear the crown, Yelena?
I don't need to wear the crown. I just wish to see change. Decent people representing each house of the blood and the council. The houses do not need an overbearing council or monarch breathing down their necks like petty tyrants.
So what's in it for you?
Her smile faded, replaced by cold steel determination.
I'm tired of living in fear, Mr. Reed.
The answer took Daniel off guard. Of every possible answer he could get, one as vulnerable as that was not common among Nosferatu, especially someone of her station. And living in fear of the council was a habit he knew very well.
Let me tell you the story of Gomez, a Nosferatu who does not walk with us any longer. Army soldier, special ops, retired. One of the toughest men I've ever seen in my eternity. Moved to Dreadfort and started a private security company. One of the best, and caught the eye of Jacob Holloway. The Duke was looking for someone to improve and modernize the security system of that grotesque skyscraper.
The members of the Ebony Dagger knew the story well. They all averted their gazes in brooding silence as the midnight fiends were caught mesmerized by her personality, like moths into flames.
Gomez was brought into the blood of House Drackle and was immediately put to work with all the resources at his disposal. That building is one of the most secure bases of operations in the world. Security, protocols, surveillance, all state-of-the-art. That building can survive a nuke if it's needed.
As she spoke, her charisma burned brighter. Eloise felt like that was a leader she could follow into battle. She was the firebrand this corrupt city needed to change. Julio, in his turn, was captivated, but thought she was too idealist. Her fire could burn bright, but it would burn fast and spread to those standing by her side.
Of course, I tried recruiting him. That was a man that could make a difference. A man of integrity. But he refused. He would not go against Holloway. It was against his principles. But as soon as the work was done, the Duke had him destroyed, to keep the details and the vulnerabilities of the system only to himself. We did our part. In the last moments he reached for help, but sadly, we were too late.
Tom grunted. He knew very well this kind of betrayal that was common among vampires, ungrateful, conniving bloodsuckers. He felt it twice. Oliver, on the other hand, remembered Gomez, but the stories that circulated among the board was that Gomez was falling under the weight of the dragon. The madness was such that he was accused of conspiring with enemies of the throne.
You see, Mr. Reed, this is what our council is capable of. They use and discard whoever they need, and this is the exact same position your crew is in right now.
Yelena looked inside the eyes of each of the midnight fiends. In some of them she could see doubt, in others rejection. But it was clear she had already convinced some of them. She let the silence hang for a few seconds more before continuing.
House Ashkari is unfairly treated with prejudice thanks to the deeds of the previous head of the house from more than a century ago. The betrayer. House Morgan was hunted to the brink of extinction. The truth is that the king is, at best, a weak coward who allows his son and cronies to run wild and terrorize the city while he hides. At worst, the king is the one responsible himself. If I am to be called a villain because I want to put a stop to this madness, I welcome the insult with pride. This city is broken. It's time we put it back together. I am not afraid of the storm that will follow.
These are lofty words. But I remember one of your children, Manfred Voigt, took a girl prisoner against her will. I had to help her escape.
Yelena looked surprised and caught off guard. Virginia grunted and was ready to intervene, but Yelena answered Daniel first.
He has not been well, I admit it. But delivering the girl to DuPont was a mistake, Mr. Reed. Jessica deserved better than...
Yelena was interrupted by the sounds of several people approaching the room. Voices were speaking in hushed tones as the steps came closer and closer. Finally, the door to the meeting room was opened abruptly. Pierre Dupont, Duke of House Strix, entered the room victoriously. He was followed by the whole council, Caroline Graves, the rancher, Van Arden, Holloway, and Spectre. Right after came in the Shire Reaver Bartholomew with his horsemen, and so did Father Michael and Don Vittorio, along Leviathans from the police and Orlok rat groups, rapid assault teams. The previous occupants of the room were astonished by the sudden arrival of so many vampires.
My dear sister.
I'm not your sister, and Justin was not my mother. She was a monster like yourself.
Dupont continued as if nothing was said. He took a cell phone out of his pocket.
We were discussing new rights to blood when we received this.
He pressed a switch, and a recording of Yelena's voice filled the room with the conversation, where Yelena invited the Midnight Fiends to the rebellion. His smile grew each time he pressed the switch, to move from one recording of her voice to the next.
I'm glad you are not afraid of storms. That's good to hear, sister, because you and your black knife just sailed into one.
He made fun of the name of Yelena's crew. All the vampires of the Ebony Dagger stood up, getting ready to defend themselves. The Midnight Fiends also got up. Eloise and Tom took steps, standing with the Ebony Dagger while Julio and Oliver did the same, but with the members of the King's Council. When the four Nosferatu noticed that they were not all going the same direction, they hesitated. They looked for Daniel Reed, who was standing still in the middle. Eloise looked at Daniel, pleading with her eyes for him to do what she felt was the right decision. Oliver was visibly confused.
Daniel, what are you doing?
Dupont turned to Daniel, visibly displeased, and that made Daniel feel guilty. For some reason, the Duke's approval was very important to him.
Daniel, step aside. You bloodlings have done enough.
A struggle happened inside Daniel's soul. He wanted to stand by the Ebony Dagger, but when Dupont commanded, the eagle inside the detective obeyed.
This does not concern us. We should stay out of this business.
The Midnight Fiends returned to Daniel, and as a group they moved away from the table without taking any side. Oliver patted him on the shoulder, agreeing with Daniel's decision, but Eloise was upset. When she looked into his eyes in disappointment, he averted his gaze in shame.
We have to do something to defuse the situation.
Defuse the situation? It is time we got rid of this council.
It's out of our hands now.
The rancher stood at the side of Dupont, with bloodlust visible in his eyes. Obadiah broke a chair to improvise a stake. Cochise drew his bow but kept it pointed down. Virginia menacingly stood in front of Yelena, Amanda, and Agnes to protect them. Agnes had her hands with the gestures of an Ars Sanguinis spell at the ready. Amanda seemed nervous and uncertain, but a vigilant observer could notice a knife sliding from her long sleeve into her hand.
Can you explain what is happening here in your library, Van Arden? Why are rebels using it to plot against us?
Adrian Van Arden took a step closer.
Agnes, Julio, what is happening here? I demand an explanation now.
Both Nosferatu stood in embarrassed silence.
Well, no need to waste time. I invoke a vote for the destruction of the guilty party of all this vulgarity.
You want to destroy Obadiah?
I cannot believe I just heard you propose the destruction of my daughter.
Calm down, both of you. I said the guilty party. Yelena! Let's not waste blood and be done with this pointless rebellion. Can we get a unanimous vote?
The rancher immediately moved his gaze from the Ebony Dagger to Dupont, dissatisfaction visible on his face.
In this case, I agree.
Caroline nodded, adding her vote to the count, but Spectre took Jacob Holloway to the side for a private talk before the vote could continue.
We can't allow Dupont to have what he wants.
Why not? Yelena has always been a thorn on our side. Good riddance.
I understand your dislike for her, but this is not a move to destroy rebels of the King's Court. This is a move to unify House Strix. If we allow him to remove Yelena from the game, Bloody Mary will soon follow, and he will have united the largest house in the city. We do not want to create another Justine, Jacob. One was more than enough.
Holloway stopped on his tracks and looked back to Dupont, passionately trying to convince the rancher and Van Arden. His gaze then befell the rest of the members of the Ebony Dagger. Why not quash all of the most important members of the rebellion right now? Sure, Van Arden would complain for centuries, but he was isolated. There was nothing he could do. They only needed the rancher to get a majority vote and he would gladly oblige. Caroline, well, everyone in the council knew she would obey Dupont. His leverage over her was overwhelming if the rumors were true.
Your reasoning is sound. Well, he needs a majority vote. If we vote against it, he needs both Van Arden and the rancher to get her sentenced to destruction. I just have to convince one of them to vote with us.
Both Holloway and Spectre returned to the other members of the King's Council, as Dupont continued to make his case to the rancher.
I want to say a few words. There is a serious matter of non-negotiable values here. Freedom of speech and the right to criticize should be protected by this council, even if used against us. To say something and to act on it are two different things. Every Nosferatu should look up for the King's Council as the guardians to these inalienable rights.
Excuse me, have you gone mad?
Under the guidance of your Serene Highness, we should be magnanimous. Our policy must be oriented by deontological ethics. Destroying her for mere words is unthinkable. Strix Nosferatu are always too boisterous.
Are you deranged?
Dupont was incredulous. Words failed him to describe the audacity of the vampire lawyer.
I agree with Holloway.
What do you mean by this buffoonery? You had members of House Dracul destroyed for a lot less. And you have been trying to kill that Orlok bloodling from the Midnight Fiends. And worse, you dared to send Daniel and his crew with a fake bomb to the sewers so he could be destroyed by—
I acted to protect the house and the King's court. The matters involving the dragon Nephilim and the instability it saddles us with are of the utmost severity. Your Nephilim is the eagle. It only makes you indulge your vices. You don't know how it is to be oppressed by the dragon.
The discussion was interrupted by the sound of a chair being cut in half. Yelena was holding a gladius in her hands.
I won't stay put while you two go on with this. Be warned that we are not going to submissively accept your decision. If you want to pick a fight, be ready for the consequences.
Sacre bleu! We cannot disregard this. You all heard. She wants to take advantage of the blows the tower has dealt us recently. You lost important Nosferatu to these blows. She is a threat to the stability of the court. Bartholomew, if you please, take her into custody.
I'm sorry, Your Grace, but the Reaver's office answers to the King and His Serene Highness Council, and I am yet to hear its decision by majority.
The Reaver answered, pouring as much sarcasm he could over the royal pronouns. The eagle inside Dupont screamed in hate, and his face was distorted by anger, but the Reaver only smiled, showing his fang. Dupont gave a step in his direction, but the horseman got in his way. The sound of a mob invading the library reached their ears. Don Vittorio entered the room and closed the door in a hurry.
A mob of Nosferatu has gained access to the library. We had no alternative to letting them in, or else we could have a severe breach of the theater. Now they are threatening to invade the room if the Ebony Dagger is hurt in any way. My men are keeping them off, but this can escalate into an utter mess.
The sound of angry yelling and people banging against the door and walls soon filled the room.
You're not the only one who knows how to take advantage of voice recorders and cell phones, idiot.
She showed a small device in her left hand.
I had supporters ready nearby just in case. They have been listening to everything you said from the instant you arrived.
Screams of protest could be heard coming from inside the library. Caroline moved to take the device from Yelena, but Obadiah interposed between them and held her arm.
I'm sorry, but I cannot allow you to do this.
Caroline and him had a face-off for several seconds in silence. Obadiah let go of her arm, and she took a step back.
Let's be pragmatic. We cannot decide this question surrounded by hostiles. We need to call off the voting.
These hostiles are rebels and work for her. She is the problem. Let's solve it.
What is happening? Julio, are you all right? What is all this noise?
A woman entered the room. She had a worried expression on her face, and she was holding a flashlight. All vampires could clearly hear her accelerated heartbeats and smell the blood coursing through her veins. She was indeed the only one alive inside the room. Julio felt terror spread through his soul. It was his wife. He needed to get her away from here fast.
Christina, you shouldn't be here.
Why is this place so dark? Who are all these people? I am hearing a loud noise coming from here. What is happening?
Julio pulled her into his arms protectively.
It wasn't anything, you...
I apologize. She's just a familiar working here in the library. Please, Julio, escort her back to her quarters and return here immediately.
Julio nodded and took his wife out of the room. She resisted a little, but they left without anyone getting in their way.
We should start considering ways for us to flee this place to somewhere safe.
Fleeing? We are going to crush these rebels. Spectre, you and I have already casted our votes. Take command of your rat groups and hold the back of the library. I'll take the Leviathans and deal with the main enemy force, and then I'm going to reinforce your position.
Agreed. Wait a second, I can solve this voting problem in no time. Rancher, you owe me for the situation with Mudd and Elijah. It was House Strix who helped you. Now is the time to pay back the favor. Van Arden, you too are in debt. We helped bring your grandchild back from the clutches of the tower. To sweeten the deal, if you vote for her destruction, I can vote for the right to bring someone new into Ashkari blood, like you were asking for.
All eyes were on the rancher and Van Arden, waiting for their votes. Amanda took a deep breath, like she just finished an inner conflict and finally found the resolution for her next step. The knife in her hand slid back into her long sleeves, and she raised her hand.
May I address the council? I want to make a plea.
You may, child, but do it quickly. We have quite the kerfuffle in our hands.
Amanda stood in front of the rancher and looked into his face as she spoke.
The council has asked several times for my service and to use my Eye of Horus. I offer to change my previous position regarding this. I am ready to leave the Ebony Dagger behind and stay at the council's disposal for any service or job at your discretion, if you vote against destroying Yelena.
The rancher's gaze stood firmly on the Nosferatu from House Morrigan before him, and a wicked smile grew on his face, with murdering intensity in his eyes.
Do you agree?
She asked nervously, and after a terrorizing pause, the rancher nodded positively.
That is 3 votes against her destruction.
But I don't. I won't allow you to throw yourself into the hands of these monsters, Amanda.
Yelena, please. You must fight another day. This way we can prevent bloodshed. Neither you, my friends at the Ebony Dagger, nor the people who support you outside, needs to bleed today. I have made up my mind.
It is official. With the 3 votes, there is no need for further discussion. Without majority, no destruction is possible. Amanda Noir is removed from the Ebony Dagger and is now at the disposal of the Council. Do you agree with this solution, Van Arden?
Van Arden also nodded in agreement.
Sacrilege! I will not forget this, Holloway.
DuPont stormed out of the room, and Holloway simply gave him the cold shoulder. Yelena and Amanda kept looking at each other until Yelena broke eye contact. With visible anger, she called the members of her crew and retreated from the room. She had to fight the eagle inside along each step of the way. Agnes hugged Amanda and soon followed the rest of the Ebony Dagger, leaving her behind with the council. When Yelena's supporters saw her coming out of the room unscathed, the commotion stopped. The crowd followed outside and soon dispersed as best as possible to keep up with the theater and not call for any more unwanted attention. Virginia approached Yelena.
I told you the Midnight Fiends were trouble. They just stood there like idiots.
This was not their fight.
I am worried. How did they know about the meeting?
I don't know. But do you think they are going to destroy Amanda?
No. The Ranger may want to do so, but for now, Holloway and the Council are going to be happy with their price. This is not how it ends. We are not leaving her behind for long.
Inside the library, Father Michael patted Daniel in the back.
You did well, my son. You should all rest. You are still saddled with the case Vittorio brought you.
I want to know if everything is okay with Julio before leaving.
Was that mortal woman Julio's wife?
Yes, that could have gone much worse if Van Arden had not intervened.
Tom looked full of worry to the door that Julio and Christina had used to leave the room a few minutes earlier. Deeper inside the library, Julio was climbing a flight of stairs back to the surface level above ground. He heard a noise and saw Van Arden waiting for him at the top of the staircase.
How is she, Julio?
She's resting now. She was very nervous and took quite a while for her to relax.
There is something bothering me.
Are you preoccupied with the secrets and treasures held within the library? With this many Nosferatu here, they might be in danger.
No. There was no risk of them finding anything here tonight. All the important assets of House Ashkari have already been moved to the oil platform. I have something else to speak about with you. DuPont already knew what was going to happen here before it started. He had everything in place to catch the Ebony Dagger red-handed.
Do you think they have a traitor in their midst?
No, it was one of you midnight fiends who helped DuPont.
Van Arden took a parchment outside his robe.
This blood covenant was signed as a non-disclosure agreement by Mr. Reed on the day I hired him to find you. Today, its terms have been violated. This means he has revealed information from inside this library to some unauthorized party.
Julio was dumbfounded. He could never expect something like this from Daniel.
I could have activated the spell in the blood covenant, and Mr. Reed would have been reduced to ashes. However, I understand that the issue at hand may be more intricate than first imagined, and hasty judgments are not advised.
Van Arden extended the parchment to Julio.
You are a full-fledged Nosferatu of House Ashkari. I trust you to investigate the issue at hand and choose how to best deal with it, considering the interests of our family. Use it wisely.
The parchment weighed heavily on Julio's hands. How should he proceed? Would he be able to choose to activate something that would destroy Daniel? No. Maybe he should discuss this with the Midnight Fiends, with everyone or without Daniel being present. Julio was still worried about the Midnight Fiends being divided when they were called to take sides in the conflict that almost happened inside the library. Was this the first sign of a fracture? Julio pocketed the parchment and knew he would have to think long and carefully before deciding what to do with it.